One gas field, the largest natural gas reserve on the planet. Two countries pull from it. Iran extracts from one end, Qatar extracts from the other. Same deposit, same underground reservoir, same molecules of gas sitting beneath the Persian Gulf. On March 18th, Israel dropped bombs on Iran's end. Hours later, Iran fired 5 missiles at Qatar's end. And in a single day, 20% of the world's entire gas supply was destroyed from both directions simultaneously. The country that got hit the hardest was not Iran, it was not Israel, it was Qatar, the nation that did nothing, the nation that started nothing, the nation that woke up that morning as the richest country per capita on earth and went to bed watching its entire economic foundation burn from both sides of the same war. And while Qatar burned, Donald Trump went on camera and said the United States had absolutely nothing to do with it. 2 senior officials had already confirmed the opposite on the record. My name is George, and what War Room Economics is about to break down right now is the single most economically devastating 24 hours of this entire war. A day that did not just destroy gas infrastructure, it destroyed the global energy math that keeps your lights on, your food affordable, and your economy functioning. Before we go any further, hit subscribe and tap that notification bell right now, because later in this video, I'm going to show you how this single day of strikes triggered a chain reaction that is currently raising the price of food in 47 countries, and why that chain reaction cannot be reversed even if the war ends tomorrow. You need to see that number, like this video right now, and stay until the end. Let us get into it. To understand why March 18th changed everything, you need to understand what sits beneath the Persian Gulf between Iran and Qatar. Because what sits there is not just a gas field. It is the single largest concentration of hydrocarbon wealth ever discovered on this planet. Iran calls it side south Pars. Qatar calls it side north field. But geologically, there is no line. There is no wall. There is no separation. It is one continuous reservoir of natural gas, stretching across 9,800 square kilometers beneath the seabed. Iran draws from the northern portion. Qatar draws from the southern portion. Together, this single formation holds roughly 10% of the entire world's proven natural gas reserves. Iran's South Pars alone produces 75% of Iran's total gas output. Qatar's North Field feeds Ras Laffan Industrial City, the largest liquefied natural gas processing complex on Earth, responsible for approximately 20% of all global LNG exports. Now hold that picture in your mind, because what happened next is something no military strategist, no energy analyst, no insurance actuary had modeled as a realistic scenario. On the morning of March 18th, Israeli fighter jets struck natural gas processing facilities at South Pars and Asaluya in Iran's Bushehr province. This was the first strike on Iranian natural gas infrastructure in the entire war. Axios reported that the strike had been coordinated with the White House. The Wall Street Journal separately confirmed that Trump knew about it in advance and supported it. The stated rationale was that it was a signal, a warning shot, showing Iran what could come next if it continued choking the Strait of Hormuz. But here's the calculation that actually drove this decision, and this is the part that should infuriate you. The Trump administration had previously blocked Israeli strikes on Iranian oil infrastructure because of the price spike it would cause. Gas, an Israeli official explained, was considered less of a concern on the price front. Read that sentence again. The White House approved the bombing of the largest gas reserve on Earth because someone in Washington decided gas prices would not spike as badly as oil prices. That was the analysis. That was the green light. A bet placed on commodity price movements that turned out to be catastrophically wrong within hours. Iran's Ministry of Petroleum confirmed damage to multiple facilities. State media showed gas tanks burning, refinery sections hit, workers evacuated. Iranian gas flows to Iraq were cut immediately. That matters enormously because Iran supplies between 30 and 40% of Iraq's electricity generation through gas pipelines. Baghdad's power grid went dark because of a targeting decision made in Tel Aviv and approved in Washington, and then Iran responded. Within hours, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched 5 ballistic missiles at Ras Laffan Industrial City in Qatar. Qatar's air defenses intercepted 4. The 5th penetrated. Qatar Energy confirmed fires and extensive structural damage to the complex. And remember, this facility had already been offline since March 2nd, when earlier Iranian drone strikes forced Qatar to shut down all gas production entirely. That initial shutdown alone had sent European gas prices up 50% overnight. Now there was physical structural destruction on top of a facility that was already dark, pipelines damaged, processing units burning, storage infrastructure compromised. This is not something you fix in a week. Industry engineers estimate that structural damage to LNG processing trains of this scale requires 12 to 18 months of repair work under peacetime conditions. Under active military threat, with missiles still flying across the Gulf, that timeline extends indefinitely. Qatar's gas output, 1/5 of the entire world's supply, is not coming back anytime soon. And every single day it stays offline, the damage compounds. Now here is where Trump made this situation immeasurably worse. After the Laffan strike, Trump posted a statement saying Israel had acted out of anger, that the United States knew nothing about the attack on South Pars, and that Qatar was in no way involved in the conflict. Two officials had already confirmed on the record that Washington approved the strike. Same attack, same day. Two completely opposite versions of reality coming from the same government. But Trump did not stop there. He then threatened that if Iran hits Qatar's gas facility again, the United States will, and these are his exact words, with or without Israel, massively blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field at a level of destruction Iran has never seen. Stop and process what the President of the United States just said. He threatened to completely destroy a gas reservoir that shares the same underground deposit with Qatar, the country he says he is protecting. Destroying South Pars does not just destroy Iranian gas production. It risks destabilizing the geological formation that Qatar's entire economy depends on. Qatar's response was the harshest diplomatic action the country has taken in this entire war. The foreign ministry declared Iran's military and security attachés persona non grata, 24 hours to leave the country. The official statement called the strike a flagrant violation of sovereignty. But Qatar also condemned the Israeli strike on South Pars instantly. Qatar's spokesperson called it a dangerous and irresponsible step and pointed out that South Pars is a direct extension of Qatar's own North Field. Targeting energy infrastructure constitutes a threat to global energy security, he said, as well as to the peoples of the region and its environment. Qatar just condemned both sides of the same war for destroying both ends of its own gas field in a single day. That is the position the richest country per capita on Earth now occupies. And the financial shockwave from this day had already begun traveling through every market on the planet. Within 60 minutes of the Laffan strike being confirmed, the financial markets did something that traders who have been in this industry for 30 years said they had never witnessed before. 3 separate asset classes moved in the same direction at the same speed simultaneously. Gas futures, oil futures, and food commodity contracts all spiked violently upward in a single synchronized wave across every major exchange on the planet. European benchmark gas futures had already jumped 50% when Qatar first halted production on March 2nd. After the South Pars and Laffan strikes on March 18th, European gas climbed another 6% on top of that already inflated baseline. Asian LNG spot prices surged 39%. And here's what most people do not understand about gas markets. Unlike oil, natural gas cannot be easily rerouted. You cannot just call another country and ask them to ship more. LNG requires specialized liquefaction plants, specialized tanker ships, and specialized receiving terminals. There are a finite number of each on Earth. When 20% of global LNG supply disappears overnight, there's no replacement sitting on a shelf somewhere. The gas is either flowing or it is not. And right now it is not. Brent crude pushed above $118 per barrel. WTI crossed $100. Diesel in the United States hit $5 per gallon for the first time since the 2022 inflation crisis. And here is where this connects directly to the cash register at your local grocery store. Diesel is not just the fuel that powers trucks. Diesel powers the entire supply chain of modern civilization. Every product you buy at a store arrived on a truck that runs on diesel. Every piece of farm equipment that plants, harvests, and processes the food you eat runs on diesel. Every cargo ship that brings your electronics, your clothing, your household goods from overseas runs on a fuel derived from the same barrel of crude. When diesel crosses $5, it does not just mean your fill-up costs more. It means everything costs more. Groceries, clothing, building materials, Amazon packages, restaurant meals. Everything that moves on diesel, and diesel just got 50% more expensive. Now let me show you what happened to the stock market, because the reaction tells a story that cuts in 2 directions at once, and most coverage completely missed the second direction. Energy company stocks surged. That part was predictable. When the commodity you sell doubles in price, your revenue doubles with it. ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell, BP all saw significant gains. Defense sector stocks climbed further. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, all rising on the assumption that military spending accelerates regardless of outcome. Whether America fights or withdraws, defense budgets grow either way. Wall Street was celebrating. But here is the second direction that nobody talked about. Airline stocks crashed. Every major carrier, American, Delta, United, Lufthansa, Emirates, all dropped sharply because jet fuel is their single largest operating cost. And jet fuel just became dramatically more expensive overnight. Shipping company stocks fell because the vessels cannot transit the Strait, and war risk insurance premiums have made Gulf routes commercially unviable. Manufacturing stocks dropped because input costs, energy, raw materials, transportation, all spiked simultaneously. Retail stocks weakened because consumer spending power gets crushed when fuel and food prices rise at the same time. So who actually won on March 18th in financial terms? Oil companies and weapons manufacturers. Who lost? Airlines, shipping companies, manufacturers, retailers, and every single consumer on the planet. The war is generating enormous wealth for a very small number of corporations while destroying purchasing power for everyone else. That is the economic architecture of this conflict. And it is the reason war room economics exists, to show you who is profiting, who is paying, and why that distribution is not accidental. Now, stay with me, because the damage was not limited to gas fields and stock tickers. Something else went offline on March 18th that almost nobody reported, and it might be the most strategically devastating development of the entire day. Hours after the Laffan strike, Abu Dhabi shut down the Habshan gas processing facility, and the Bab oil field after debris from intercepted Iranian missiles fell on both sites. No casualties reported. But Habshan is not just another facility. It is the starting point of the Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline, known as the Ad-Kop line, running 248 miles from Habshan to the port of Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman. This pipeline handles an estimated 1.5 million barrels of oil per day. And here is why that matters more than almost anything else that happened on March 18th. This pipeline is the only major export route from the UAE that bypasses the Strait of Hormuz entirely. It was built specifically as an insurance policy, a way to keep oil flowing even if Iran closed the strait. It was the backup plan, the emergency exit, and now it is offline. When Habshan goes down, the bypass goes with it. The UAE's entire oil export capacity is now dependent on a waterway that Iran controls. The backup plan just failed, and no one in Washington, no one in Abu Dhabi, no one in any allied capital has announced when it comes back online or whether the debris damage was severe enough to require weeks of repair. The Federal Reserve held interest rates steady on March 18th, citing elevated uncertainty from the conflict. That language, elevated uncertainty, is central bank code for we have no idea what happens next, and we are afraid to make it worse. U.S. producer prices are climbing at the fastest rate in 7 months. Inflation that the Fed spent 2 painful years trying to crush is being reignited by a war that America's own allies refuse to support. Now here's the part of this story that should make you genuinely angry regardless of where you sit politically. Because the economic destruction did not stop at energy. The Strait of Hormuz does not just carry oil and gas. It carries a significant share of the world's LNG exports that serve as feedstock for nitrogen-based fertilizers. Those fertilizers are not optional. They are the chemical foundation of modern agriculture. Without nitrogen fertilizer, global crop yields collapse by an estimated 40 to 50%. The fertilizers produced from Gulf LNG grow the staple grains, wheat, rice, corn, that provide more than 40% of total global caloric intake. When the strait closed and LNG stopped flowing, fertilizer production lines in India, Southeast Asia, and East Africa began shutting down within days. China has already tapped its strategic fertilizer reserve. The United States does not have one. India has invoked emergency powers to protect 333 million households that depend on liquefied petroleum gas for cooking. The United Nations humanitarian chief Tom Fletcher warned publicly that millions of people are at risk if cargo cannot pass through the strait safely. This is not an energy crisis anymore. This is a food crisis detonating in slow motion across the developing world, and it was triggered by a single day of strikes on both ends of one gas field. And while all of this destruction cascaded through markets and supply chains, one country was sitting quietly on the sidelines, watching its bank account grow larger by the hour. Russia. Every dollar that oil climbs above $70 per barrel is another dollar flowing directly into Moscow's war machine. Russia is funding its invasion of Ukraine with the elevated oil revenue that this war is generating. The European Union's foreign policy chief said it publicly. The war America is fighting against Iran is financing the enemy that NATO was literally built to confront. And the United States is simultaneously granting sanctions waivers allowing Russian crude already at sea to reach buyers in India and elsewhere. America is fighting a war that raises oil prices. Those prices fund Russia. And America is letting the Russian oil keep flowing while asking European allies to send warships to fight the war that is enriching the adversary those Europeans are already bleeding money to contain. Every foreign ministry in Europe sees that contradiction, and that contradiction is one more reason why every single phone call asking for warships got rejected. But the most chilling dimension of March 18th was not economic, it was strategic. And it reveals something about this war that nobody in any government wants to say out loud. In the 48 hours before the gas field strikes, Israel assassinated 3 of the most senior surviving officials in the Islamic Republic. Ali Larijani, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, the most powerful surviving figure in Tehran after Israel killed Supreme Leader Khamenei on February 28th. Brigadier General Golreza Soleimani, commander of Iran's Basij paramilitary force, and Intelligence Minister Esmail Khatib, who had a $10 million American bounty on his head. 3 men killed in 48 hours. All 3 had direct institutional connections to both the military and civilian sides of the Iranian government. Larijani specifically had led Iran's nuclear negotiations with the West between 2005 and 2007. He was a former Speaker of Parliament. If any single person inside Iran had the authority, the relationships, and the institutional standing to negotiate a ceasefire with Washington, it was Larijani. Israel killed him. And then Donald Trump told reporters, and this is a direct quote, "I do not know who to negotiate with inside Iran." The United States says it cannot find a negotiating partner. Its closest ally is systematically assassinating every Iranian official who had the stature to be that partner. Trita Parsi at the Quincy Institute framed it directly. The Israelis have fought to drag the United States into a full war with Iran for over 20 years. It is in their interest to prolong this war and to kill off any potential off-ramp that Trump may be looking for. Whether you agree with that framing or not, the operational facts support it. The people who could have ended this war are being buried in Tehran right now. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has submitted a request to Congress for more than $200 billion in war funding. America's Strategic Petroleum Reserve has committed 41% of its total capacity to stabilize oil prices, and it has not worked. Crude climbed 17% after the reserve release. 6 American airmen are dead. China's PLA headquarters is monitoring strike patterns on live screens, studying what works against American defenses. North Korea is testing missiles. Dubai's airport got hit by a drone. Kuwait's airport is shuttered. And Iran's new supreme leader, a man no one has seen on camera, no video, no audio, just a photograph on a television screen, is issuing orders that include one line that should freeze every analyst in Washington. Studies have been conducted regarding the opening of other fronts in which the enemy has little experience and is highly vulnerable. This war is 19 days old. There is no ceasefire framework on any table. There is no back channel anyone will confirm. There is no exit plan that any government involved has shared with its own public. And the single most important question of this entire conflict is not who is winning. It is whether anyone left alive and in a position of authority has a plan for how this ends. Now, before you go, I need 2 things from you. First, drop a comment and answer me this. Do you believe there is still a realistic path to ending this war through negotiation? Or do you believe that path was destroyed when the last negotiators were assassinated? I want your honest answer because the discussion in this comment section is producing sharper strategic analysis than most think tanks, and your voice makes it better. Second, share this video right now with someone who still thinks this is just a Middle East problem that does not affect them. Show them the diesel price. Show them the fertilizer chain. Show them what happens to their grocery bill when 40% of the world's calories are at risk. 10 seconds of your time could fundamentally change how someone understands what is happening to the global economy right now. This is War Room Economics. My name is George. I will see you in the next one.